Roger with Linguaplex. Everybody wants to speak English fluently, but there are no shortcuts. To speak English fluently, you have to practice a lot, and you have to practice everything: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. You have to learn grammar, and you have to learn vocabulary, and you have to learn pronunciation. However, there is one skill that you can develop that will help move things along a little more quickly. That skill is learning how to think in English. In this short video, I want to tell you why you need to learn to think in English. If you're not thinking in English, you're thinking in your native language. If you're thinking in your native language, you're translating everything, and it's very slow. If I say something to you in English, you translate it into the native language, you think of a response, and then you translate your response back into English. This process is very slow, and it makes conversation very tedious. If you think in English, you make fewer mistakes. In our native language, we use very difficult words and very difficult sentence structures because it's our native language. Our speaking ability in our native language is very high, but our ability in English is quite low. If we're composing our thoughts up here and we're trying to translate them with a much lower level of English, there's a disconnect, and it makes it very difficult. And this is where we make a lot of mistakes. You try and translate your complex sentence structures in your native language into simple sentence structures in English, and you naturally make a lot of mistakes. So if you think in English, you learn to compose your thoughts in words and sentences that you already know how to use, and you will make fewer mistakes. The last point is learning how to communicate differently. If you can train yourself to think in a different language, you think about the world in a different way. And you learn to use context around you. You learn to use facial expressions, tone, and the setting to come to conclusions. You learn to think critically, and you learn to solve problems. Maybe you can't communicate your ideas in one way, but you can think about it differently and communicate your ideas in a different way. That is the key to speaking any foreign language fluently, and that is the real benefit of learning another language. You train your brain to operate in a completely different way, and that is really powerful. I hope this helps. In the rest of the blog post, I explain a couple of tips to help you get started. It takes a conscious effort to learn how to think in a different language. So there's a couple of little tricks that I used to use and still use to get started. Okay, if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments or send me an email. Thanks.